I want to talk about uh, toner technology and the labels and packaging market. And I thought maybe start with an overview of how big is that market. And according to our intelligence, for 2024, now we're talking the last year that we have full information about, is 2024. There's about 1,000 presses being sold or were sold in 2024. And that is label presses, digital label presses. And they were distributed over what we different categories: entry level, mid-market machines, high-end, and then hybrid. Um, Hybrid is a combination of digital technology together with flexo, or most of the time flexo technology or offset. And that's actually a minority. It's about 1%. Um, the big market is, or the market where most machines are being sold, is the mid-market, and those are the machines that have an investment cost between 250,000 euro and, let's say, 750,000 euros. Uh, in between those prices, that's what we call mid-market, and as you see, that's approximately 50% of the market. Entry level is below 250,000 euros, and high end is then the rest. Now, what you see is that of all those 1,000 machines, except for the hybrid, then 42% of the machines being sold are EP, electrophotography, or toner-based machines, and 57% of the machines are inkjet. And that number, although it's declining just a little bit over the years, it's pretty stable, which is actually proof of the fact that toner surely today is a dominant technology in the labels market, labels printing market. And we are convinced that it will stay like that for quite some years, at least the next 10, 15 years into the future. Now, we are a believer of the coexistence of the different technologies in the market, because depending on the application that you want to print, and you see here several label applications, one technology is better suited than the other. You see here different applications. You see wine, you see chemical labels, you see health and beauty labels, all different kinds of labels, pharma as well. And depending on the application, one or the other application or technology is better suited. This is our evaluation of that. And basically, we divided all the different labels into food, beverage, wine and spirits, pharma, durable, industrial, health and beauty, and chemical labels, as you see. If you talk about dry toner, then food, beverage, wine, spirits, and pharma, also health and beauty, are surely applications that are well suited for dry tone. On the other hand, um, durable and chemical labels are not so well suited for dry toner, because the resistance that you need for those labels, and there for sure the UV curable inkjet technology is better suited. Now, we, as of course other players than Xeikon on the market of digital color presses, but we are the only ones who have both technologies into our portfolio, meaning toner or EP, electrophotography, and a UV inkjet. So I think we are very well placed to talk about this. Now, what we recently did, well, recently, 3 years ago, we introduced a new toner, which I will also talk about in this session, and that is the TITON toner. I will explain what it is and why it is what I show here. It is suited for all these applications, but more to come in the presentation. As I said, we have a portfolio that is really wide. Originally, we only had EP, but since many years, we also have UV inkjet machines in our portfolio. And those machines, UV inkjet, are called the Panther series. The toner-based machines are called Cheetah and TITON series. And next to the digital presses, we also make our own consumables. We have our own workflow and software. And of course, we do our own support in the field. Diving a little bit deeper into our presses, you see here an overview of the different presses. The top speed machine is the LX3000. The Lion, L is for Lion. It is running up to 42 meters per minute. That's the fastest machine for EP on the market. On the left side of the slide, you see the entry-level machine, which is the CX30. And basically, the differences between the presses are the speed on one hand, which you can see here in the y-axis of this graph, and the width of the press. Typically for labels, of course, the narrow web version presses are mostly sold. That's the 330 millimeter wide web with the CX300, CX30, and the LX3000. But we also have wide versions, meaning 520 millimeter web, and those are being used sometimes also for labels, but also for other applications, which I will touch in a moment. And next to those, we also have the TX300 and the TX500. T is for TITON, and I'll explain that in a minute. Now, what are the crucial advantages of toner technology? Dry toner technology, as we have, has a very important substrate advantage. We barely ever need a primer to print on all these kind of substrates. Natural paper, coated or uncoated, structured paper for instance, wine labels. We can print on direct thermal materials, clear on clear, PE, polypropylene, metallized substrates. So a very large range of substrates without the need for a primer. That's a very crucial advantage. And we see that certain sales that we do have only to do with the fact that we can print on so many different substrates. Next advantage that we have is the printing quality. We are printing in 1200 dpi, 1200 dots per inch accuracy without actually a dot gain. When we print on a substrate, even if the substrate is very absorbent, the ink, the toner, does not flow into the material, so there is no dot gain. If we print a certain dot, it will not be enlarged by spreading into the substrate. That's a very clear advantage over UV inkjet for certain applications. For instance, for printing very fine lines or microtext. And therefore, our technology is also being used for security applications, such as tag stamps, just to give you one example. But also, this feature gives you the advantage to print pharma labels much better than UV inkjet, because pharma labels often use microtext, and we are very well, or this technology is very well suited to do just that. And then another very important advantage is the compliancy that we have to offer. First of all, the composition of our toners is according to all these regulations that you see here listed. Swiss ordinance, German ordinance, UPA, Nestle, and so on. That means that the components that we did choose to make our toner are compliant with all these regulations. To be fair, for most of our competitors, this is also the case. But the next thing is, what about migration technical compliancy? What does that mean? Migration technical compliancy means that we pass independent migration tests. It's very important to understand what we are doing here. We are going with our toners to independent specialized labs. Typically, we work with one in Switzerland. We give them, under non-disclosure, of course, the composition of our toners. We give them also print samples, and then they test specifically, so they know exactly what our toners are and they know exactly what components to test for in the migration tests that they do. They measure that, and for all the components that we have, we are well below all the legal limits that are existing in the world. And so we get a certificate from that organization to prove that we are migration compliant. Now, for UV inkjet, migration compliancy is a big issue. And we from Xeikon, we believe that UV inkjet cannot 100% comply with this, because you cannot, first of all, the components that UV inkjet ink have, they use molecules that are very small. That has to be like that, because otherwise the risk of blocking the nozzles is quite high. But on the other hand, small molecules tend to migrate much faster than bigger molecules. And so there is always the danger that non-cured molecules do migrate into food. And therefore, we do not believe that UV inkjet can be migration compliant to be used with food. I had a slide here in terms of migration, just to explain what migration is. You see here in the blue dotted line, the printed material, ink or toner, and there is a tendency to migrate through a certain substrate if the substrate has not barrier properties big enough in this way or in that way. That is migration, and so that could happen if the toner or the ink is not safe enough. Now you also have offset migration, and that is the fact when before the actual packaging is made, the one side of the substrate where the ink is against the underside of the substrate, and also there migration could happen, offset migration. So both of these are quite extensive risk for UV inkjet. We are convinced about that. And for EP, dry toner, that risk is practically zero for the reasons that I have explained. And food safe regulations, there's legislations, laws in every country, and they can be different for every country. But then you have also associations that have different rules. And then on top of that, you also have certain companies that have their own rules. Most famous one is Nestle, but you have, for instance, Tetra Pak or Lego or Danone or 3M. They all have their own rules. So it's not always easy to comply to that. Actually, we have 3 specialists only at Xeikon keeping themselves busy with only these aspects. All our presses are a full rotary press, meaning that you can print labels next to each other without, they can actually be as large as you can imagine. For that reason, our presses are also being used for printing wallpaper, to give you one example. This has actually nothing to do with the fact that we're using EP. This is just a result of how we build our presses. We have 5 different printing stations for each color. So with EP, with electrophotography, we are actually covering much more than just labels. We have quite some customers who are doing heat transfer on, for instance, as you can see here, buckets or pails, as we call them in the industry. Pouches, I come back to pouches later in my presentation. Folding carton, paper cups, wall decoration, and security printing. All of these applications, or we have customers around the world doing all these applications in some kind of way. Now, the TITON technology, which we introduced 3 years ago, is something very specific, and actually it brings the best of both worlds of dry toner and UV inkjet. I explained that dry toner is a food compliant and actually recyclable technology, where inkjet is a durable printing technology where normally you do not need varnish. But we now brought both of them together into the TITON technology. It is a food compliant and durable printing technology where you do not need varnish or lamination to protect the print. And just one more technical slide to explain how that works. This is a cross-section of a TITON press. And we start with a molecule or with toner that is composed of molecules that have a specific photoinitiator in there, a very small number of photoinitiator, and also a specific photoinitiator that is a quite big molecule. We first fuse the toner onto the substrate, which we would always do in every toner press. But then what we do is we cure the toner with an LED lamp, which activates the photoinitiator and which creates cross-links between the different toner molecules. And as a result, we get a very cured and durable toner layer. What does that mean? Durable toner layer? Well, it can resist very high temperatures, and I'm talking about 200 degrees centigrade, for instance. It can resist scuffs and scratches without the need to use a varnish or a lamination. And it can also resist to solvents. That is what pure TITON toner brings. In September, we had Barcelona, Label Expo de Barcelona, where we introduced the TX300. We introduced the TX300 being a TITON press specifically for the label market. And the basic specifications are these. It's a 1200 dpi press, 5 printing stations, typically CMYK plus white, but we also have spot colors available. It runs at 30 meters per minute, a web width of up to 330 millimeters. And you can, of course, print labels with a normal press, let's say the CX300, but you can also print labels with the TX300. And what is the difference? Well, the TX300 needs a little bit more investment. It's a little bit more expensive to build and therefore also more expensive. But on the other hand, you do not need to have a varnishing step anymore. On top of that, you save a step in the production of labels. No varnish, no varnishing equipment needed. The prints that you produce are overprintable. We have customers in France and Italy that have TX presses only for labels. And one of the benefits that they have is they can print on the TX300 or TX500 labels. And then later on, they can imprint last minute, for instance, the year of when the label is produced or the kind of grape that was used to produce the wine. On top of that, you also have the possibility to include a Kurtz unit for embellishment. I will explain that in one of the following slides. I will skip this one. And that is we can do inline one-pass metallization with the help of a Kurtz unit. The metallization will be in perfect registration and is fully variable. You do not have to have a tool such as you would need with uh, the traditional technologies. How does that work? You see here the TX500 or TX300. You print in 4 colors with TITON toner, and the TITON toner is heat resistant, as I already explained. On top of that, you print a 5th color, which is a toner that is being used as a transfer toner. The toner will be fused, and then you come to the unit number 4. That is a unit that we developed together with Kurtz, and that unit will apply a gold or silver foil. It will heat and pressure and put pressure on the label, and only there where the 5th station was printed, the transfer toner, only there you will get a gold or silver image, depending on what foil you choose. And in this way, you have a fully variable one-pass metallization possibility to embellish your labels, which brings a lot of benefits in terms of flexibility, design freedom. It's very cost efficient. Speed to market is another benefit. It's easy to use because you can control the gold or silver in the front end. In other words, a lot of benefits. We actually showed this at the show in Barcelona. Whoever, if you were there, you could see this. And we made a short movie here. I will try to play that so you will see what the effect is of the unit. So you see here the labels being or coming out of the Kurtz unit. You see here the back side of the line, and you see the different labels following each other. Each label can be different. Each label was in fact different while we were printing. And of course, as I explained, you can do variable data with that. This label we did print, and the pattern of birds here was different for every single label, as you can see here. We implemented that with security software also from Kurtz. Scribos it is. Would lead us too far to go into detail, but with a scanning app, you can actually verify if the label is real. Also, these kind of possibilities are available. Last chapter, a couple of more minutes. I want to explain a little bit where we are with flexible packaging. And for flexible packaging, just basic introduction. Flexible packaging can basically be done in 2 kinds of ways. Traditionally, it's being produced with the lamination process, where you start with a plastic transparent substrate. On top of that, you print a toner, for instance, via a flexo. And on top of that, you actually have a different layer of a plastic film, which serves as a barrier, and then you have the food, in this case, M&Ms, but could be different kind of food as well. And in this way, you see that the ink or whatever, the toner, is actually sealed into a sandwich. And in this way, the ink cannot go anywhere, certainly not to the food. Then there's a different way of producing flexible packaging, and that is actually just by direct printing. You print on a substrate, a thicker substrate, or typically the substrate is playing the role as a barrier. And then the food again, the M&Ms are protected from that. Now, whether you use the lamination-based process or the surface-based process, it has some advantages and disadvantages. On the left side, the lamination-based process, the toner or ink is fully encapsulated and actually cannot go anywhere, where on the right-hand side, you need a toner or ink that is much more safe to do that, which we have. But the right-hand example, surface printing, brings a much more simplified process, which I will show you in a minute. The lamination-based process needs much more time to produce the packaging, but the lamination-based process has the advantage that it has a better, it can be used for more diverse application, as it has a better OTR and WVTR, which means it has a barrier for oxygen and vapor, which is better. But the surface printing technology has a better recyclability. So you have pros and cons of the different technologies. Now, if you want to bring that into action to produce flexible packaging, we can do that with the TITON technology, and you can print, you start with an unprinted roll, you add a primer, and then you print toner on top of it, and you rewind the roll. And the next step already is going directly to a converting line to make pouches or bags. This could be done within a time frame of, let's say, 4 hours. Now, if you would do that with a traditional technology, Flexo, or by our friends of HP Indigo, what they need to do is they start in the same way, an unwinder, a primer, printing, and then rewinding. But because that ink that they use is not suited to be in indirect contact or with food, they need to laminate that with another substrate on top of that. And after the lamination step, this sandwich composition needs to dry. And basically, it depends on what kind of substrates you are using. You need to wait 48 to 96 hours before you can actually go to the finishing. So actually, in order to make traditionally flexible packaging, you need multiple days to do that. In other words, the TITON technology, which is the one above, has a major workflow advantage if you compare the two technologies. What kind of flexible packaging applications do exist on the market? The one that is mostly used today is the sandwich-based technology, where you print reverse. And a typical example is this potato chips packaging. You can package a lot of different kinds of materials or food or substances in there, soup, soap, dog food, what have you. But the big disadvantage here is it is virtually non-recyclable, because the sandwich is made of different materials in order to create a good barrier, and you cannot take them apart in the recycling step. Direct print on paper is a different kind of technology. You see here, typically, sugar is being packaged in such kind of things, but you can also package, for instance, baking flour or tea in these kind of packages. And then you have a technology which is more and more becoming relevant, and that's a monomaterial plastic, for instance, a PP-based plastic, where because of the pouch, the bag is being made of only one kind of plastic, this can be recycled. And because of the more and more rules becoming more strict in the world, there is a tendency to move towards those kind of pouches. And we have the possibility to produce those direct on paper or direct on film. Those can be done with TITON technology. We also have a sandwich-based technology, which is FlexFlow. It's a little bit out of the scope of this presentation, but just for being complete, I showed it here. One last slide before I come to the summary is what kind of applications can be done with TITON. I explained pouches already, I explained labels, but apart from that, we have a couple of customers who are doing paper cups with this technology. We have wall decoration. We have, for instance, a customer in Holland that is doing wall decoration with that TITON technology and the Kurz unit behind, so they can produce very unique wallpaper. We have also, so that the Kurz integration also makes it possible to do security printing applications. And that brings me to my last slide before we step into the Q&A, if there are questions. And that's this slide. What are the lessons learned? What are the possible takeaways from this webinar? It's no surprise, of course, that we are convinced that toner technology is here to stay for the following reasons. First of all, you have a unique printing quality capability. I explained the 1200 dpi without a dot gain. Actually, sometimes in combination with the second bullet, broad range of substrates, wine label substrates is a clear advantage that we have. Third bullet, compliance benefits. I talked about food safety, explained it a little bit in more depth. But apart from food safety, we're also talking about other compliancy. For instance, toys, prints on toys. Toddlers put, of course, toys sometimes in their mouth. That has to be safe. Also there we have regulations that we do meet with our toners. There are specific regulations for wallpaper. We comply to them in the best way possible. And then last but not least, for the future, direct printing in flexible packaging, the TITON technology is unique in that and will be a success in the future. That is certainly what we are convinced of. That was the last slide of my presentation. I would like to thank you all for your presence and your interest. My email address is listed here. If you have extra questions, feel free to contact me. My colleague from Scandinavia, Per Larsson, can also be reached. Pelle, and we call him Pelle, but his email is here, per.larsson@flintgroup.com. So if you want to reach out to him directly into Swedish or another Scandinavian language, feel free. Thank you very much. Bo, up to you if you have questions.
Yes, thank you, Frank. Excellent presentation. And I hope everyone got what they wanted, that they are curious on your technology for the future now. We do have some questions, but first, very quick from me. You mentioned, I think, somewhere the Xeikon. You didn't explain that much. What do you mean with Xeikon?
Yeah, very good question, Bo. Yeah, of course, I mean, normally this presentation would take at least 2 hours if I would go into detail, but it's a good catch, actually. Xeikon, we introduced the Xeikon 2 years ago together with the Lion. And the Xeikon is actually built 60% out of recycled plastic. Some companies were surprised that we could do that, but it's a fact. So we use recycled plastic to make that toner. And in this way, we can lower the carbon footprint of our toners by 10%. And on top of that, it is also 100% vegan. So we can certify it that no animal was used to make that toner. That is what Xeikon is.
Okay, so you're actually a part of the circular economy. with plastics?
Well, it's a big topic for us. We are working on that constantly. It's something that I didn't highlight in my presentation, but it's a big topic for us to work on that constantly. Yes. Actually, we also have for each of our press, we have a scorecard that highlights how well we are doing in terms of CO2 production and when you are using those presses to print. We have that for our toner presses, but we also have that for our UV inkjet presses. So people can look into that and compare with other presses.
All right. Yeah, we do have a question here about a listener is asking, can the CX model be modified to TX?
The CX model cannot be modified to the TX. That is for technical reasons. The LED lamp is built in quite deeply into the press, and we cannot do that in the field for existing machines, unfortunately.
Okay. Yeah, the same listener is asking if it's possible to have all applications in one machine.
Well, actually, yes. If you would buy a TX 500, which is actually the most versatile machine, because the TX is of course built to run the TITON toner, but actually the customers themselves could switch to, for instance, QBCH toner, and the switching from one toner to the other would only take, for the 5 colors, half an hour. So actually, if you would invest in that press, you could do almost all the applications that I mentioned if you would have, of course, the proper finishing to accommodate that. But the TX500, for all the toner-based presses that we have, is certainly the most versatile press.
Yes, here is maybe a tough question for you. Your toner technology has a severe limit in speed, so the cost benefits are for very short runs only. What do you say to that? And how can you increase speed to compete with inkjet?
Okay, so it's certainly not true that our presses are only for short runs. But it is true that the inkjet technology today has a higher top speed than toner. That's true. Our fastest UV inkjet machine runs at 70 meters per minute. There are some machines that go even to 80 meters per minute. So okay, that's true. But as I said, each technology has its own benefits. If you run at 42 meters per minute constantly, and our presses are built to run constantly, you can do a lot with those presses in one day, in a month, or in a year. And we have some record-breaking machines in the field. Sometimes we think, yeah, our machines are built just too well because they last too long. And they run millions of clicks or meters during their life. So no, it's not true that our presses are only for short runs.
So for the future development, are you looking to increase the speed? Is that the topic for you, or and is it possible? Or do you have to buy two machines if you like to have a better output?
We are looking into what we should do for the future, but we are not really convinced that speed is always the best way to go. When we introduced the LX 3000, that was certainly a big step forward from the CX 300, increasing the speed by more than 40%. But should we go faster? We are looking into that. We could go faster if we needed to do so. But maybe there's other things that we should invest. into. And that actually is one of the reasons why we invested in the development of the toner technology, because we believe there's other things that we should be working on. And that is exactly why we did that. We are, of course, constantly improving our software, because also that's a topic I didn't explain in my presentation. But we have a very strong software built for digital label production or digital printing in general, and we are known for that. And also there lie a lot of challenges and advantages and benefits for our customers.
Okay. I was thinking about the future. What about the TITON technology and the toners? What do you like to improve? I mean, in the toner mainly. Is there anything, or is it complete now, or what do you like to improve in the toners?
Well, the toners, I talked about compliancy quite a bit. And as everybody knows, the compliancy is getting more strict all the time in Europe, but everywhere around the world. The rules and regulations become more strict every year. And in order to keep up with those regulations, we need to adapt our toners constantly. And that is what we are doing, because we want to be compliant with all those regulations and the laws that we have around. Secondly, the trend that I was explaining specifically in the flexible packaging, from sandwich-based pouches into more easy recyclable pouches, that is a trend that is going on at this moment as we speak. It's not only that we are investing in that, but a lot of uh, um, substrate manufacturers are investing a lot of time and money in that, because they realize that we have to be more sustainable in the future, and therefore, as much as possible, we should step away from non-recyclable packaging into recyclable packaging. And we are convinced that that is a trend, not only for flexible packaging, but it's most easy to explain for flexible packaging. That is a trend that will evolve further and further into the future. So also there, we are spending a lot of energy and investment in those aspects.
Mhm. I think you answered this in your presentation, but there is one listener asking which Xeikon press can print labels at 42 minutes per minute.
That is the LX3000, the Lion, the Xeikon Lion. We introduced that press in Label Expo Brussels last year, I think it was.
Okay. And how has the market welcomed the TITON machines and the toner so far?
Well, actually, we originally built the TX500 for the flexible packaging market, but we actually saw that the label printers were even more embracing the machine. And that's why we also developed the TX300. So we have quite some customers in France, in Italy, in Spain, in the Baltic states that did invest in the TITON machine for labels. And when we launched the TX300 at Label Expo in Barcelona just September, a couple of months ago, we saw the tremendous interest in that technology. So I think we're only just at the beginning of the success of this press, which we already have in the field. I mean, we have about 20 machines, only TITON in the field at this moment, running around the world. Most of them in Europe, to be fair.
Just a regional question, since I'm from Sweden, do you have any TITON machines in Scandinavia?
Yes, we have a TITON machine in Scandinavia. It was installed 1.5 years ago. Unfortunately, Pelle, I don't think we can disclose the customer because he doesn't want that. And we also cannot disclose the application, but we have one press running 1.5 years in Sweden. Yes.
And I think that's correct, Frank. And I think the reason to choose Titan in some for some application is really when we're talking about heat resistant, scratch resistant, and also with chemicals. And there are quite a lot of different applications that really needed to be, for example, heat resistant. That's correct.